Hello, I'm Justin Pipple. My placement this semester was at the West Michigan Academy of Arts and Academics in Spring Lake. I taught 8th grade science. When I first got there, we started with genetics, and then where I started, or where my unit is on, was astronomy, and we did Earth and the moon. My classes were, the school itself is 86% white, and then the rest is other races and ethnicities. In my class, I know that there were 2 kids who were ELL. My age group was about actually 12 to 15-year-olds. I think they're all 13 now. I have 2 students who receive special education services, and I'll get into their accommodations that they had later on in my presentation. So the prior knowledge of students coming into my astronomy lesson varied. So I'm going to focus specifically on moon phases, and some of them have a good understanding of them, especially if they've been at the school. A lot of these students have not been at the school. They've joined in middle school, and so the ones that have been there since elementary already know about moon phases. So it gets into my standard. My standard is a middle school Earth Science one from National Generation Next Generation Science Standards. Sorry. So it states that develop and use a model of the Earth, Sun, Moon system to describe cyclic patterns of lunar phases, eclipses of the Sun and the Moon, and seasons. In my Earth unit, I focused on seasons. In just this lesson I'm going to talk about, I focused on the lunar phases part. And the use a model part is very important. That's what I got my students to do a lot. So my objectives were sketch and label the phases of the moon and explain the lunar and synodic month. My technology objectives, or standards, were evaluate and select information sources and digital tools based on appropriateness to specific tasks, and 4B, plan and manage activities to develop a solution or complete a project. So getting into the lesson, the assessment, and the strategies part. So in science, we follow a 5E format, which is based on science inquiry or student-based learning. Goes such as engage, explore, explain, elaborate or extend, and then evaluate, which I'll go into with my lesson plan going forward. So the engage part is where you're getting students interested, getting them asking questions. So here I used a pretest using Kahoot, which I mentioned in my assignment, or the assessment versus evaluation assignment. And what I did was I used it as a formative assessment to gauge where my students are at coming into this. What is their prior knowledge? So what I did was I had 8 different phases of the moon. No labels or anything, just a picture of the moon with the 8 different phases. And I had 4 options for them to click on to give me feedback, so I can guide my lessons toward addressing any of the confusion or common missed answers that they may have had with this. So the next thing I did after I figured out these results was I did a hands-on activity with moon phases models. So this was the worksheet I used. I gave them a model of the Earth, Moon, and Sun, and so the first one, they had to draw the position of all 3 when the moon appears to be fully illuminated on Earth. So they had to use these models, position them the way they think it is, and then draw that. And they had to do that for 2, which is where the moon is not fully illuminated, and then 3, where you only see half of the moon, and then the other half. And I just had them do this. We didn't talk about it. I had them turn it in, just to get them thinking about using these models to show their thinking. So then next what we did was we went to the stage, and I had a heat lamp, and a styrofoam white ball on a stick modeling the moon, and the lamp is modeling the sun. So in this attacks my objective of sketch and label moon phases. Not label so much, more of the sketch part. So I gave them the sheet, and they are the Earth, so the center, and then the sun is that heat lamp, and then they have 8 different moon phases. And what I did was I first started where there is no shading, and I stood there and I had them all look at me. They're sitting in a circle in the center. I said, all right, how much of this is Illumina? How much do you see of this moon? And they said, all of it. I said, okay, now what does this appear to be on your sheet? So we got to talking about the different moon phases, and we started kind of getting some labels down, and they mentioned full eye. So, and we went through each of those. I stopped at each of these places, and they would draw down what they see on this moon. We'd address any confusion. And the shaded in parts is the part that is not illuminated by the sun. So then we finished that, went over these answers. I didn't put labels to them yet, though some of the students did already have labels that already had a prior understanding and could understand by, oh, I see only a small part of it is shaded, and it looks like a crescent or something. So they figured that out. So then we went through the actual notes, actually getting this terminology down. Accommodations I have for special education students where they already got these notes ahead of time, so they could just follow along. And here they are. So we went through the different phases: new, the crescents, the gibbouses, full, the quarters, and the terms of waxing and waning. Also in that demonstration, we went through how long they think it takes to go from a new moon, which is fully shaded or not illuminated, to a new moon. And I tried to get back on their prior experience of observing the moon. How long does it appear to go from when you see it one month and then to the next month? And we eventually got to the 29.5 days, and that's called a lunar synodic month. So once we finished that, we went through illustrations, getting the actual moon phases down, getting it correct. So then we went to this elaborate or extend, and this is where I used another one of my assessment tools. This is the summative one, where they design a flyer or poster. I encourage the students to do a poster, though they could do it online using technology to create Google Slides to show these different moon phases. So they had to show these moon phases or lunar synodic month. And going into the accommodations, the students that receive special education services were given a couple of extra days to finish this. So, and this gets at the technology standards, where they're using different sources online to get at specific tasks. I'll get into more of that when I show the worksheet. And they're planning and managing activities to develop a solution or complete a project or this poster. So what they had to do is, on this poster, whatever they chose to do, they had to draw the different moon phases with the labels. And they had to have an Earth, a moon, and a sun. And their Earth and moon had to be scaled so that the Earth was 4 times larger than the moon. They had to figure that out. And the sun had to be much larger. The other thing I had them do was they had to determine, I gave them the starting date of a moon phase, and I believe it was January 15th. And they had to determine what each phase, what day it would occur on, and when that cycle would start all over again. So they had to use different websites online to figure out, did a moon phase ever occur on January 15th? And how long do these moon phases, how long does it take to go from one moon phase to another? And so they turned that in, and here's the rubric. So it was 8 points for getting each moon phase correctly labeled. It was 8 points for correctly shading in each of those moon phases. It was 9 points for going to from new moon all the way back to new moon phase. And they had to be within plus or minus 1 for the date. And then they had, if they did it, they had to have a correct model of the sun and the earth and the moon. Which I forgot to add. Whoops. So the total for this project was 30 points. And finally, the last thing I had them do was take a quiz on moon phases. They had to include the sun, the earth, and the different moon phases with the different labels. All right, that is my lesson. Thank you.